out there. Hello, hello. Welcome to runZero Hour, episode Hex 14, which is 20 in decimal, right? Somebody check my math. I'm not good at math. Okay, perfect. And Todd, Hex
Yes.
14 is that's device
Control.
control 4.
Yes.
Yes.
Device
Okay.
control 4. Good old
And,
device control 4.
yep, in the ASCII table, we're running out of device control
Yeah.
characters. I don't know what we're going to do when we actually get
Pretty
to printables.
soon. Pretty soon we're going to get to printable. It'll just be
Yeah.
like apostrophe.
That's what we'll have to do. We'll have to do that
Yes.
and get rid of the hex entirely. So, yes. So, thank you all for joining. I'm Rob King. I'm Director of Security Research here at runZero, and I am joined by my colleague Todd Beardsley, who is the Vice President of Security Research. But we
Mhm.
are, more importantly, no offense, Todd,
Well,
joined by two very special guests.
some offense taken.
Some offense taken. That's okay. It was meant to be a little offensive. We are joined by two very special guests, Rishi Sharma, who is the co-founder and CEO, and Sandeep Singh, who is the co-founder and CTO of ProjectDiscovery. Thank y'all so much for being here. Like, super excited to have you.
Oh,
So,
excited to be.
yeah, it's gonna be fun. We've got, and everybody who's watching, you're in for a treat. This is super cool. So we are talking specifically with Sandeep and Rishi about reshaping security with open source insights from ProjectDiscovery and runZero. So what is ProjectDiscovery? What is Nuclei? Well, Nuclei is some are calling it the new Metasploit. Not that we have shock.
What?
I know.
I
But
definitely
it's
have
not
called it the new
inaccurate.
Metasploit.
I think. Well, people are calling it. I've heard that.
Right.
Um, but it is a really fascinating tool designed to allow distribution and description of network scans, vulnerability detections um, that you can use to run and see what's on your network, what's going on, what sort of vulnerabilities are available. It's designed to be extensible. It's open source. As you can see, it's got 1 million active users. It's got 23,000 stars on GitHub. And I mean, some of my projects have like 1,000 stars, so I know what this is like. No, I'm
Wow.
kidding. I'm kidding. I know. Um, and it's used everywhere. It's really become a pillar of the information security community. And Nuclei is just one of the many open source tools from ProjectDiscovery. And so as you can see, ProjectDiscovery as a whole, there's 20 or more open source tools, over 100,000 GitHub stars. Again, I know what that's like. Am I right, fellas? 10,000 community templates, a template being what you can actually use to describe a vulnerability in Nuclei, and over 100,000 people contributing. And you can see this beautiful
Wow.
list of vendors and users and things like that, including what is that? What is that in the middle there? The
This is a
cybersecurity and infrastructure security. There's a lot of
yeah, that is a
security.
glowing recommendation, by the way. That's
Todd, you
quite
would know.
quite the quote from SZA. So
Yeah,
good
yeah.
job, guys.
Yeah, CISA is it's the security agency responsible for securing the United States'
Mhm.
infrastructure and cybersecurity. So the fact that they're talking about it means it must be really, really cool. So without further ado, let's talk a bit about Nuclei. So Sandeep, Rishi, what is Nuclei? What is it? How would y'all describe it?
I mean, I would say in simple term, it's basically a customizable vulnerability scanner that give you everyone to make use of your own template of vulnerability scanner. So it's a scanner
Mm-hmm,
for everyone that requires, let's say, minimum requirement to build their own exploiter template that they can use over time.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love if no one's ever seen a Nuclei template, it's a YAML document that you can say, hey, run this HTTP request and see what comes back and tell me if it's this or that, and run some JavaScript code or run a regex. It's really nice. It lets you describe vulnerabilities very simply. It's even become almost a standard in the industry to say, just as 20 years ago you might have a snort signature, it's
Right.
becoming common now to have a Nuclei template for a vulnerability, which I think is gentlemen, we have arrived. That's pretty cool, right? That's fascinating stuff. So if that's Nuclei, then what is Project Discovery?
Yeah, I can give a bit of insight. So
Please.
when we started as a group, we called our name as Project Discovery. We picked a username on GitHub called Project Discovery. So Project Discovery is company behind creating these tools, and we produce a lot of tools. We use the same username on GitHub / Project Discovery, and we have same website projectdiscovery.io where we publish different products.
Awesome. So what are all those other tools? Can you give me just kind of an example of what else is out there? I mean, Nuclei is the big one, but
Yep, I mean, I would say the Nuclei is most known or commonly known in the community, but there's set of tools actually that just talk to each other. For example, like vulnerability scanning is well known because that's where we see the results or something we see as actionable. But in order to achieve that, you basically have to go through all the reconnaissance process that actually makes Nuclei workable. For example, if you're running a testing for organization, you wanted to explore all the assets or all everything they own, so you can actually run vulnerability scan against them using Nuclei. But to enable all those stuff in the reconnaissance phase, there's, let's say, 7 or 8 set of tool chains that you can combine all together. For example, subfinder that enumerate or find all the subdomains passively, and then there is a DNSX that actually filter out all the subdomains that you enumerate with the subfinder. So it's actually a valid host that you are going through, and then you can pass that input to HTTPX further, which will basically probe for all the live web services to ensure you're only testing that are actually a live host versus something that are dead. And you can also pass the input to a Nabu, which is another open source project we have there for the port scanning, which basically a simple approach to quickly run port scanning and also complement to our other tools where we just pipe the input from one tool to another. And then there's the Nuclei where you combine all the output generated from each tools in the reconnaissance phase, and then you perform vulnerability scanning to them. I mean, like this is whole tool set, but there is also dedicated tools which might fit for, let's say, a specific use cases. For example, there is a TLSX which let's say, pulls out all the certificate information over the internet. I mean, the release we recently pushed out, which also includes the feature of live streaming of certificate logs. So not only you can, let's say, pull the certificate on, let's say, for the given host, you can also browse through the live log that are going through. And there are more tools like map, CDR, ASN map that pulls ASN data, or let's say help you work with your target in terms of the input slices. And also, I would say there are 20 plus tools that basically focuses around reconnaissance and vulnerability scanning, which can combine or each use all together. I would say. I mean, if you're anyone interested, probably just take a look at GitHub. You probably get to know a lot of.
And all these tools are open source?
Yep. Everything we built or did over time is all open source as a default tool.
Very nice.
And so these are so you've got like 20 something other open source, 19 or so other open source products, right? Software projects. And so it sounds like a lot of them are useful for like piping data and like gathering a bunch of stuff for an eventual run of Nuclei. But it also sounds like they definitely are standalone tools in their own right, right? Like an ASN mapper. I don't know what I would do with Nuclei with that, right? But it's still useful to know, and it's useful to know for other reasons, right?
Yep, exactly. I mean, the tools are built with both focus in mind, not only just, let's say, chaining to each other, complement each other, but also be a standalone tool for doing what it do. Like, for example, you mentioned ASN map, right? You can pull the data of related ASNs and CIDRs associated with that IP or domain. Then you can further pipe those CIDR to port scanning and then HTTPX and then Nuclei. So
Okay.
they can also be used together, but they build primarily to do one thing, what they aim to do primarily. but we always had idea in behind that. We, let's say, not only wanted to make individual tools, but also they can chain together, which basically simplifying the UX, because it's really important in terms of, let's say, how simple it is to use these tools. We are
Mm-hmm.
putting it out. I mean, I would say that's the major difference in general. It's not like there's not, let's say, other open tools out there, but basically things, small things that focuses on usability or simplicity is what probably, let's say, is the additional thing we would be doing with our projects.
Mm-hmm.
Dope.
So, what inspired? I mean, it sounds like y'all have been interested in information security for a while now, apparently. So, How did y'all get started? What was sort of the inspiration behind this? What problems were not getting solved by existing tools? All of them.
There's a long story. Probably feel free to join Rishi whenever you want. But I would say, let's say how everything started. I mean, I've been, let's say, into InfoSec for, let's say, probably more than 10 years now. I started in 2011. I spent doing full-time bug bounty for 5 years. And then I also joined HackerOne to do a triage work for 3 years. As a hacker, I've been to top three hackers on their platform. And all of us mostly coming from the security background, where we are
Mhm.
spending more time around the automations or doing testing in general in our day-to-day life. And that's how we actually met. We all co-founders met through GitHub, where we are
Mhm.
collaborating to each other with sharing the feature requests or ideas. For example, Subfinder was the project where I got to meet my other co-founder friends through feature request, something to add in the
Do you remember what the
Subfinder.
project
That's
was?
how, yeah.
Do you remember what the project was where you met?
It's the
Oh,
Subfinder, the project
Okay.
okay.
where
Helpful.
we met, or let's say started to collaborate. And then after that, it was just more about we all had ideas or things to execute, and
Hmm.
all are on the same page in terms of, let's say, how we can do that. And let's say this is something we have been doing in our part time. Let's say whenever we are working on this, I mean, Project Discovery is something, let's say, we registered in 2021, but we have been working on these open source project, let's say, from 2017, where we just working on building these OSS tools and putting out of the GitHub, but mostly around what we are doing as a daily basis, either it's security engineering or
Hmm.
testing or quantity stuff. The idea is to automate all the stuff that can be actually automated, so we can spend the time doing actual testing. So
Hmm.
that's the idea. And I mean, I would share specifically about the nuclei, where it becomes, let's say, I mean, not something we had idea how it will be turned out, but for example, I mean, during Metasploit days, where we have, let's say, all the CVs or scripts getting
Hmm.
out, every vulnerability that are coming out that time, and then it becomes, let's say, difficult over time to just manage your all script projects you have
Hmm.
installed or compiled over VPS that you got lost access to, and now you don't know how to go back to there. I mean, things that you test for once, that like
Hmm.
this one, you tested against one target you're testing for, and next time you just forget about it. So, I
Hmm.
mean, there are cases like this where we know there are steps that we are keep repeating time and time again, but if we somehow store this information in some configuration file manner in simplest way, it would be just easier to rerun those configurations files over testing those things manually all the time. So that's where, let's say, we started with the idea of that YML template, where we simply, let's say, try to define HTTP request, DNS request. I mean, they start, it was just two, three protocols, but now
Hmm.
there is more than 8 or 9 protocols to try to, let's say, support all possible automation. But yeah, that's how everything started. And then, I mean, we always wanted to make the engine powerful, so it can, let's say, allow user to customize or do automation for complex
Hmm.
exploits as well. We never thought that the idea of template would, let's say, become a common or community powered. It was more about giving power to user to write their
Hmm.
own custom template. But as an example, we added a couple of templates that we wrote initially in the Nuclei template projects. And over time, as we publish it, there are PRs coming out from the community members that then taken over time. I mean, it's been huge. I mean, we really get happy or see when, I mean, get to know how commonly Nuclei or template get used. But it was Nuclei engine to start with, and later community is what made the Nuclei template, let's say, a success or common, let's say, language for vulnerability information.
Well, and that leads me to my next question. For you, Rishi, specifically, what's the magic, dude? Like, how do you go from ragtag bug bounty hunters on GitHub to industry standard scanning tech? Because it does seem to have been fast, and it does seem rather magical. Like 100,000 contributors is a lot. I used to work on Metasploit. We had thousands. We did not have 100,000. I don't think we ever had 100,000 distinct contributors. But I want to know what do you ascribe your success to? Why Nuclei and not one of the millions of other GitHub projects that want to scan for vulns?
Initially, we did not know it would turn out to be this. So definitely, we had no idea. As Sandeep said, when we initially started, it came out of the problems we were facing. So two problems that we were generally facing. One, every time there was a new CV, we either had to kind of wait for a vendor to give out us some detection, and generally those detections are version based. The second is like to wait for some random Python script to get available on GitHub. So those are like two sources. And
or
then
some random Ruby script.
Yeah, random rules. So those are kind of like methods that we were using, and also since we used to write our own scripts, we were like doing it kind of like in a manual ad hoc every time there was a kind of a high profile CV came out. I think if we go back 5-6 years back, the ecosystem of just like information centralization around vulnerability detection was just so chaotic, and it was a pretty known problem around that period of time that there should be a kind of community play, or there should be some kind of a standard where everyone can collaborate in terms of, okay, there's a CV, we need to create some detection. Everyone can involve in terms of but kind of editing it out, making it more robust. But that wasn't available. We honestly had no idea. As Sandeep said, that second repository we put out, Nuclei templates, was just an example repository, how to write your own templates. Primarily, we wanted to build something for us where we could design our templates and we can keep a centralized repository. But I think within a couple of weeks, we started seeing a couple of kind of POCs or high-profile CVs getting into our templates repository, and that was kind of a really good dopamine period for us. That now there's someone contributing to example repository, and then we kind of had to edit the READMEs in order to make it more approachable for everyone to write the templates. But yeah, we focused on 2 or 3 things, and which allowed us to kind of keep a continued momentum within the community. Like we were like initially, when you go back to Nuclei, we couldn't automate like everything. It had some limitation in terms of type of templates you can design. So we used to hear very kind of proactively every time there's a new CV, can we really automate with Nuclei, and how fast we can support it into the Nuclei. So that community loop or feedback was like critical, and we were doing it in a very consistent fashion. And also we used to really kind of make the Nuclei templates repository itself more a community place. So we were like putting out the post on Twitter or other places where people can know about these templates that we are releasing within a week, and also make others aware that they can use it, confirm whether it's a good template or not, and give us the feedback. So it was a lot of feedback. But yeah, it was just, I would go like, it was just, again, we never really thought it would become that kind of a standard. It was all the community who really put a great effort in giving us the direction in where we need to make Nuclei engine itself better, as well as like type of templates we need to consistently support.
How has it been managing such a huge community? Like, how many PRs do y'all have to review from just random people every week?
Yeah, it's a lot of work now. We have now dedicated team just to review and merge these PR. Now there are a lot of users using Nuclei, so that's also a bit of a responsibility in terms of kind of quality of templates that we need to merge. We also need to continuously go through the cycles of false positives, false negatives across these templates. So we built a team, we built a lot of processes around the templates repositories that allowed us to be a bit more kind of consistent as how we are releasing the templates and how we are improving. If you go back to our changelog, we put pretty much all the details around what we shipped, what are the templates we improved over the course of last 2 weeks, and what are the things we are kind of like working on, or new things we are working on. So it's a lot of work. Initially, because Nuclei, we kind of got a bit of a pull from community. So we all, pretty much everyone in the team was heavily involved in Nuclei end to end, like writing new features on engine level, as well as like reviewing the templates, and everything was like done by us. But yeah, we now have a bit more bigger team to support it, but still a lot of work.
We had a couple of questions actually from the audience about that as well. So what one of the questions that we got was, how does Nuclei handle performance with buzzing? And because Nuclei, it's, if you aren't familiar, y'all are familiar. If you in the audience aren't familiar, Nuclei supports things like default login detection and buzz parameters and things like that. How do y'all handle the resource consumption that comes from that?
Yeah, I mean, there's different strategy in terms of, let's say, how the template or target execution works. I mean, since there's a lot of template, or let's say template something that grows over time, so you cannot think there's always a limited template. So since we know the targets or templates is growing over time, and we expect to run against more and more targets, the idea is to, let's say, how we control execution in manner where it's not processing, let's say, all the input at once. Instead, let's say, processing in batch or following strategy. For example, there's there's a detailed doc around, let's say, how to utilize Nuclei to run mass scanning, where, let's say, we shared about the template spray strategy or host spray strategy, where, let's say, as default, it's template spray, where it takes one target against all the template versus in one case. In other case, it takes one template run against all targets. So depending on, let's say, how you're looking to scan or utilize, these options can be tweaked. But yeah, in order to basically, since it's not processing unlimited target at a time, we try to, let's say, batch the execution in a manner it always, let's say, processing the set limits, and these are also configurable as well. Let's say we try to keep the default to make it, let's say, generally usable, and not, let's say, getting someone's internet down or target down for that. But these all our options are configurable, and I would say everyone, let's say, uses differently depending on, let's say, the type of scanning they are doing, or, let's say, how they are approaching the target. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there are different strategies, and we also try to document in the doc so it can be, let's say, usable for certain conditions.
Yeah. And with so with Nuclei, it's written in Go, as it should be. I do love Go. And I know that there's been some work around embedding Nuclei, making the Nuclei engine, because you can embed Nuclei engines, kind of use it as a library. And I know that someone has been doing some work on making that a little bit faster. And
Who might that be?
I wonder who it could be.
Hey,
Oh,
our AI meeting decoder is really
HD
super hacker
Moore.
HD Moore.
That's been great working with the team. Sandeep and Rishi have already done a fantastic job of building a great engine. The way they normally run, or the way that Project Discovery, I believe, runs the engine is you have kind of one big process that runs lots of plugins at a time. The way that we look at running Nuclei on the runZero side is a little different. We want to run one engine for every individual target service, not the other way around, because we do a lot of like customization and things like that. So what we're doing now is working with the team, and definitely want to call out to Marco on the Project Discovery team. Has done a fantastic job rewiring all the guts of the engine to be concurrent safe and to get rid of singletons and globals and race conditions. So that stuff is like, especially if you have a really large Go project like either runZero or Nuclei, like getting rid of your data races is like one of the hardest things you can do in Go. So it's been a long few weeks just going through and knocking them out one by one, but we're very close to getting to the point where you can run as many concurrent Nuclei engines per process as you want to, and they all just work happy and together.
No,
And
this is a great example actually. Thanks a lot, SG, for contact. But just wanted to add a small information. Let's say this is great example how the tools also evolves over time. For example, I mean the thing we are doing to make change. Let's say when we build the Nuclei initially, it was, let's say, more a CLI focused work where the multi-execution was not even a consideration, or let's say how it will be used. But over time, I mean, you can just use Nuclei or import in your workflow, right? And to enable that, we need to make some code changes that actually enable, since it was not something to be considered to start with. And SG did great work to, I mean, improve that part. We have been that in our backlogs for so long time, but thanks to SG to pushing us to make those changes. But it looks really good.
That's a lot of fun. We're excited to do more than that. Like we have, so the big projects we're looking at runZero are helping with the engine concurrency. That's the one I'm doing kind of right now in the background. Rob King and his team are going through and looking at more testability, doing more verification of templates. We're setting up test labs for a lot of the targets. Hopefully we can come back and say here's some bug fixes here and there. We've submitted a couple small ones so far on things like Jenkins, Airstream, a couple other like tools here and there. So we hope to do more of that soon. And the third big chunk that I'm working on right now, leading up to the Vegas sessions, is trying to port the entire Shambles S8 security testing tool we have into the Nuclei JavaScript API. So the idea is you can take all the neat vulnerability checks we do in Shamble and just get them for free when you run Nuclei, and that's the goal. So you don't have to use our stupid Shamble tool. You can just use Nuclei and get all the same checks. So that is the intent.
This is something that happens in our lives. As HD's just like, oh, by the way, I'm going to import this entire thing over to this other thing. Oh, I did it. Never mind. So I'm going to do that. It's really quite scary.
We all need hobbies. This is what I do on my vacation. So.
I'm just learning French. So we had a question from the audience. So how many concurrent sessions, you're talking about making this massively parallel, how many concurrent sessions are you expecting to see?
Depends on the use case. I mean, in the runZero sense, we never want to run too much stuff per target or per network because we don't want to cause an impact. And so we're really careful about only doing one asset at a time, one service per asset at a time, and then some number of assets at a time that are not going to be hitting the same physical device or network or endpoint. But with those constraints out, you can do as many as you want. You do 100,000, do 50,000, we don't really care. So the tricky thing for us is how do we do this in a way that's really performant, where we can pick a very specific set of templates for every individual service target, as opposed to trying to like bake all the logic into the Nuclei flows. Now, if you want to do the other direction and go to like the big, it's kind of like, do you want a horse-sized duck or a million, ducks? We're going down the million ducks model, where Project Discovery is very much like the horse-sized duck model, and that you have all the engine smarts being part of Nuclei itself. So they've got this fantastic thing called AutoScan, where it'll use this technology detection to then create tagging and use the tagging to find appropriate templates to run. And that's awesome. That's really cool. It's kind of a different way of doing it than we're doing it, but it's awesome. And so I recommend, if you're already using Nuclei in your stuff today, take a look at using AutoScan for it. I'm sure you guys can provide some better recommendations there. And if you want to go the other direction and create millions of little Nuclei engines and mini ducks, then you can take the other approach and embed the engine and run it per service if you want to.
So HD, I had a bit of an open-ended question, and I would love to get Sandeep and Rishi involved here as well. What made you start looking at Nuclei and think about working on this project? Like, what was the impetus there, the inspiration?
Kind of embarrassing. So I've been a fan of it for like 3 years, 4 years. And I know Caleb Seema is one of the investors, and occasionally I'll go like be grumpy with him and be like, I don't like this template. Why isn't this get this a certain way? He's like, why do you care? You're not even using it. I'm like, I don't know, but I care. I like it. Like, so I've been like, just kind of funneling feedback for a while and going through the templates, reviewing them. And it's just been really fun to watch the project grow and to start off kind of look like one thing. And then it just got better really, really fast. And especially in the last year, or so, we've seen it get recognized as an amazing tool. We've seen all these huge cloud companies just silently adopt it and then not tell anyone. So like Wiz is out there spamming Nuclei requests and charging you for them when you can just do it yourself, or you can pay ProjectDiscovery and get a better, first source version of Nuclei if you want to. So I feel like it's really important to try to spotlight on the fact that not only is this a tool that, ProjectDiscovery is doing a fantastic job commercializing, but lots of other companies are commercializing it too. And our role here at runZero is if we're going to use someone else's open source project in our stuff, we want to contribute back to it and make it good. And not every other company feels that way, but I would feel really guilty and terrible if we didn't.
Yep, and I not to steal HD's thunder, but HD has been a machine. Like I just want to call out that I see him constantly contributing things, and it makes me feel slightly bad, but I'm doing my best here. So, but so I also, there's a question coming in. So Nessus Pro has OT specific modules and ICS SCADA smart scanning, and runZero's active scanning is tailored for OT and ICS environments. What is the safety of using Nuclei to scan critical infrastructure and industrial environments? Is there any thought given to that yet? Is that kind of on the roadmap? Is that a mysterious future kind of thing? Or is it just, use at your own risk?
Well, I mean, I know that with the runZero implementation, right? Like we do a bunch of the pre-scanning work before Nuclei gets on the scene, right? So we'll identify all your ICS, OT, all your printers, more on printers later in the show, and
yes,
all your fragile stuff, and then we'll use the tagging system that's in Nuclei to be able to say like, okay, now run these checks against this thing because I know it's this thing, right? So that's how runZero deals with the safety thing in the integration with Nuclei.
Right.
Your goal would be to look at a ton of protocol stacks we're going to go right now that are not open source, and we'd love to start putting more of that into open source land and using Nuclei too. So at some point maybe we can take our SIP implementation or our DMP3 or whatnot. And I think Nuclei already has some of these today, but we can find a way to either bring some more checks in. Like our goal is we don't want to have a bunch of hard-coded Go checks and runZero. We'd rather make this be Nuclei templates and wire those in. So just from a business standpoint, we prefer to put more of that future code into Nuclei than into runZero directly.
As the person who wrote the DNP3 probe, please don't let me clean that code up before we release it open source, because there's a lot of curse words and a lot of WTFs in there. So DNP3 is not my favorite protocol. They're all good. They're all good protocols. I love them all. But yes indeed. So Rishi, what's next for Nuclei? What's kind of the roadmap in the broadest of terms?
Yeah, Sandeep can give more insights. He's leading a lot of technical efforts, but yeah, we are continuously making a lot of improvements thanks to SD. He has, if you go to Nuclei's repository, you will see a lot of pull requests that are like being constantly spammed by SD, and he's doing a lot of work. And that's such a great work, like seeing from community, like just how to like really evolve the engine itself to kind of like fit into different use cases. So that's kind of part of roadmap that we need to continuously do. We are doing a lot of testing around different type of testing that we can embed within Nuclei. So in some cases where there are some certain type of protocols that we can't really scan for, there are type of different testing that we can't really do effectively, like fuzzing, for example, that has been around a year or two in Nuclei, and we are like thinking through how to make it more effective. We are also trying to kind of embed few more features within the Nuclei workflows, especially when you run and kind of like how you generate test cases on runtime about Nuclei. Anything, Sandeep, I'm missing?
I mean, a lot of small things. For example, let's say talking about the Dash. I mean, there is a one thing, let's say that, generally comes in the testing about the authenticated scanning, right? We have, let's say, been support about, let's say, using how to use Nuclei for authenticated scanning using secret file and some dynamic template you can create. But let's say we wanted to simplify it further to, let's say, making the login templates easier on the user side. So let's say, for example, you can imagine there's an extension comes pre-installed, or let's say you can install optionally, which will open up a browser and then record your login step in browser. And once you click enter, it will just auto-generate the Nuclei template for the steps you follow in the browser. So in that way, you just have ready-made template that you can just put into a secret YML for pulling the dynamic session. So the simplifying some of the stuff that will, let's say, make it easy for the usabilities for the authenticated scanning. So that was one stuff. And then auto improving the auto scan, for example, like there is a combination of currently, let's say, using tags combination, and then using the exposed panel templates we have. Let's say let's say we are exploring how we can extend this coverage more, so it's let's say more useful to run auto scan in general. For example, I mean, it's depend on, let's say, how you're approaching target, like auto scan lighted scanning, where you don't want to, let's say, burden with lots of requests, versus you run full scan, where uh, the priority is to getting full coverage versus over, let's say, the time and probably the traffic rate. But to make auto scan more useful, let's say, how to have more exposed panel checks or technology detection, so it covers more and more stuff automatically than having to create custom template for it. So I think these are a couple things, but yeah, there is a lot. I mean, there's a lot of open PRs and possible features that might come, but I would say, yeah, these are some upcoming stuff.
Oh, one thing, one of the protocols like headless, if someone has used headless in Nuclei, it's a bit of painful in writing templates, as well as like converting into a proper actual automation. We are doing a lot of work, especially for when you need to automate post-authentication or steps that are like purely browser-based. It's really difficult to do that in the current setup in Nuclei, and we are like thinking through how to build features on within Nuclei to make it more effective, or like generate automatically as you are like browsing the different steps. So you would also see some updates on, especially on the type of test cases where you do purely on a browser level.
And then also, you're going to rewrite it in Rust by December, right? This is what I'm hearing. So yeah, I'm kidding. So we had a question from the audience. Any plans to enable global matchers from Nuclei to the passive runZero collection? I can give you the short answer of you can predict everything but the future, and this is a non-future looking statement, and don't quote me on it, but yes, that would be something we would like to do. So, but don't come back and say Rob absolutely said it would be done by this date. Didn't. Another question, is there a mechanism for scoring templates by confidence or fidelity? Maybe some sort of community voting. So that's a great question. Yeah, how do you had mentioned earlier talking about making sure these were high quality templates, and could you maybe give like a minute of explanation as to what that process looks like?
Yep. No, this is a great question, and this is important to share how these things work out, because I mean, the maintaining the quality of template becomes very important, because I mean, as soon as something get merged, there are, let's say, a lot of users, let's say, just using that template to perform the, let's say, wide scale scanning of their organization. So having something false positive or something, let's say, which is not accurate, can be really problematic. So let's say, keeping this in mind, let's say, we have dedicated team for, let's say, template review itself, where we, let's say, go through the functional review, where we, let's say, try to make or format the template in right way. And then the second step is to validate or verify the template, where we wanted to ensure the template that has been written is actually validated in sandbox environment, test environment, or not. And then there's a field we add in the Nuclei template called verified true false, which basically everything that we verify on our side while reviewing the PR is marked by that. So most of, let's say, majority of template, I would say, is let's say, manually verified. The only thing that we try to see how to scale, like creating template automation around template can scale easily, but reviewing is not, let's say, something can scale in the same way. So we are looking to explore to how to, let's say, improve that part of it. But along with that, let's say, we also know that there is much more value or importance of, let's say, the trending CVs or CVs that are larger online host on the internet. So let's say consider given product that are available on 50,000 hosts. You can look up the Shodan or any other platform. So EVs for products that are have passive exposure on the internet are, let's say, the most impactful thing. So we also wanted to prioritize those CVs or template for, and then also in, let's say, just to make this more real, we recently also started the template bounty program where we try to the nuclei, let's say the CVs that don't have nuclei templates, and then have these criteria met. Let's say they have, let's say, exposure on massive host on the internet. So once we get that templates, it's much easier to have, let's say, scan those through, and then let's say more scanning, more detection, and then more ability to validate or fix those vulnerabilities. So apart from, let's say, what let's say try to cover, we are also trying to focus more on more CVs on the KV list, or the one that are more popular but don't have template coverage. So we are also adding, let's say, additional bounties, let's say, just for the, let's say, for the template work that really requires some additional time, or let's say more time to go through those exploits and then writing template, contributing back to template project.
I love how this all started with y'all starting doing bug bounties, and now you're paying bug bounties. It's the world has come full circle. It's awesome. I love it. Also, and this was just purely out of curiosity, y'all met via GitHub. Did y'all already live in the same city, or did y'all end up moving?
We all lived in different cities.
You just knew?
No, we for the initial, I would say 6 or 8 months before we became really good friends, we did not know our names. We just used to call by username. And then once we became friends, we then got to know that, oh, this person is living here, this person is living there. And then probably after a year and a half, we actually met in person. So it took a while to meet in person.
I love the internet. I love the internet. That's great.
For all its faults.
I know, I mean, I wouldn't be here without it, right? This is, I mean, in a quite literal sense, as we are in fact streaming over the internet.
Right.
But yes. So Rishi, Sandeep, thank you so much. We're gonna move to the rapid response roundup. Although first, before we do that, HD, did you want to mention there was something about interesting crypto something that I saw you wanted to mention real fast.
Sure. Yeah. The really big news in GoLand as of yesterday is that the Go FIPS 143 stack is just turnkey. You can literally upgrade your version of Go and have a FIPS 143 compatible product almost instantly, which is amazing. So it's very easy to build FIPS 143 compatible stuff now without having a compiled version of an OpenSL, boring SL module. It's now all Go source code, which is amazing, and the great work by Filippo. So we're excited about that. Other part of that work is we've been working on, there's a library called zCrypto from the ZMAP team that speaks older SSL. And if you're building a security scanner, you need to speak all the old versions of SL2, SL3, TLS 10, 11, et cetera. You can't really be limited to your TLS versions based on what's currently safe, because targets that you want to talk to are not going to be running the safe version. So we've been working on taking the zCrypto code, forward porting it so that it's all clean and does the right thing. But also, we've got a repo right now that's mostly done. We're still doing the final port. But the idea is you can speak SL 3.0, TLS 1.0, all the way to post-quantum crypto, all in the same Go library. And it's basically linked all the way up against Go current code. So effectively, it's like the Go current crypto code, but with SL3 kind of broken out as a separate little submodule you can run. And everything else lets you support every version of TLS from 1.0 all the way up to all the cool chem exchange stuff. So we're in the middle of porting that over. We use that internally at runZero, but we'd also like to do a PR to move that into the ProjectDiscovery tools. The cool thing about that is then those tools don't have to fall back to 3 different TLS stacks. You can use one TLS stack and it all works the way you expect. So we're hoping to build a PR that over. It's taking forever because keeping up with the Go tip has been a nightmare. Every week I fall another week behind. So just it's a treadmill right now of PR merging, but we'll get there.
And to FIPS, for those of you who may not know, FIPS, the F stands for fun. That's the Federal Information Processing Standard, and it's a required set of cryptographic technologies that are often required by regulation, either government or industry regulation. It's not always the latest, it's not always the coolest, but it's the ones that are, proven to be safe. So having that built in Go is really, really nice. I don't know if Signal is FIPS compliant, actually. That's an excellent question.
there's a final question from the
Final
chat.
question. Okay.
For Rishi here on what about AI? The question is much longer than that.
Yes,
but basically it's what about AI?
What about AI?
Yeah, I can give some insights purely around Nuclei. So we recently introduced the AI flag, probably 2 or 3 months back. What it was doing was essentially you put Nuclei, your target URL, and you put a prompt that the kind of test you want to perform. And what it was doing was essentially generating a template on runtime using something we built on generation of Nuclei templates. So you give a prompt and it will generate a template back to you. And on runtime, once it's generated, it will run against your target. What it was doing, or it was generating a generic template. So right now that was kind of released 2 months back, and we got a really good feedback and good amount of response. Something we are trying to do in the current form of Nuclei is like, how can we generate a template or run through a series of template iterations based on a given objective or a given test. Okay, I want to find accesses on this particular template. So it might evolve around the traditional dast form that we have, or the fuzzings we have, as well as combining with LLM based on the response we are seeing and iterating on runtime with Nuclei. So this will open more a dynamic form. So this is something we are actively exploring, but we want to keep it more focused approach. Like if you have used Cursor, if you do give a pure specific prompt, it will do a really good job. So that's something we want to do within Nuclei. There are going to be a lot of UX and few things that we want to ensure that we do it right. So we are a bit careful, especially considering Nuclei already has a lot of users. But that's something we are actively thinking through and trying to build out and release out.
I love how there's this constant theme of a focus on being careful and quality and really respecting the users. And I mean, it sounds cheesy, but like, I really appreciate that. It's really, really awesome that y'all have that focus. I really, really like it. Okay, so Rishi, Sandeep, thank you so much. This was super fascinating. Please stick around. We're gonna go through the runZero rapid response roundup for the month, which is all super fun. And definitely feel free to add your insights to anything that we talk about here, because this is always super interesting. So the 3 rapid responses that we have this month that we want to talk about, we had many more rapid responses, but the ones that we're going to talk about today are the Fortinet vulnerability that came out just recently, the Microsoft SQL Server one, and then a really fun, we kind of saved the best for last, and I don't want to rush through the first 2, but I definitely want to talk about the brother. So just real fast with the Fortinet thing.
Yeah, what's the deal with this Fortinet bug?
Yeah, well, so Fortinet is this is another example of how we've noticed over the past, few years, maybe, security devices are becoming the targets. They are, and which makes sense, right? I mean, like, they're the ones that you can get to. They're exposed to the internet, or to, by definition, the insecure side of the network. If you crack them open, you automatically get access to whatever was trying to be secured, right? But it's interesting in that both this one and the Microsoft SQL Server one are kind of classic bugs that I think are interesting. This one is specifically a SQL injection in the user interface, which was like, oh wow, that's it's kind of neat that these older classes of bugs are still happening.
It's ridiculous.
It's the way of the world. But with the SQL Server, this one is, this takes me back. This is a classic remote
heap buffer overflow, baby.
Yeah,
you got to do grooming on the heap and everything to get it to work.
Yeah,
right?
There's a feng shui information exposure bug that you can use to actually get status of stuff on the heap, so that you can then, when you're doing the exploit, you can actually craft your shellcode even better. It's really interesting. So, by the way, if you're running Microsoft SQL Server, you should probably patch it. Is the goal there? But And we've done, so runZero has always been particularly great. Not to toot my own horn, I did not write this code, but I'm not taking credit for it. But we've always been pretty great at detecting Microsoft SQL. And there's been, not because of this, but just sort of coincidentally around this time, there's been an immense amount of work on even better detection of SQL Server and SQL versions. So if you haven't scanned your SQL Server with runZero lately, you probably should.
Give it a try.
Super cool. Yeah, just give it. Yeah. So super fun stuff. But let's talk, Todd. We've got about 10 minutes.
We have some
Let's
minutes.
talk about this brother printer situation.
Sure. So Brother, it's a delightful company and product. I have one in my house.
I have two. I have two right behind me.
Right. Wow, you're a super fan.
I am. Color in black and white, right?
Yeah. Next time I'll wear the Brother hat instead of the Project Discovery hat.
There you go.
But one of the and they've been really great, right? So a couple weeks ago, Stephen Fewer from Rapid7 works on Metasploit now. Released a paper about a handful of bugs on the Brother printer firmware.
A large handful, big handful.
Yeah, like a heaping handful of these. Two of them in particular that caught my eye were one, you can use the serial number of a Brother printer to derive what the default administrator password is. So like if you're in Rob's house right behind him, and then you can like look under the Brother printer, you can see the serial number and then derive his default admin password. The fix for this: change your default admin password, pretty please. Brother says they're going to address it in the manufacturing process at some point, but there's no fix for that, right? And that's something. Secondly, there is a way to learn Rob's Brother serial number over the network. And there's a couple different ways to do that. And the one that Rapid7 wrote up had to do with like a CGI, like it was like an indirect, insecure direct object reference on some CGI script or something that would like get you to the serial number. And we looked at this and I'm like, oh, look at that. And, you know, we're writing up the
I don't even think it was CGI. I think it was just a straight up GET request.
It was just like, it was some GET. And we're writing up the rapid response, and you know, part of that exercise, Matthew was on point for that. Part of the exercise is like, okay, well, like what do Brother printers look like? We have scanning templates for them already, blah, blah, blah. And I see it's like, oh, look at that, there's a serial number like right in here. What is that about? Are we using a bug to get that? Nope, it is. And Rob kindly educated me on the UScan. What is it? The ESCL?
ESCL, yeah, by Morpia, yeah. Which, as far as I know, we're the only people who actually use detect.
Well, I think other printer manufacturers use it.
Yeah, but I mean,
so the moral of the story here is like, oh, okay, so there's a CVE on this thing about the serial number being disclosed. We have another way that we've been disclosing the serial number for a couple of years in the product. Like you scan your Brother printer with runZero, you get the serial number. It's there. It's as if by magic, right? And so it's like, this feels like this is the same thing. We talked to Steven. It was like, Steven, is this the same thing? He's like, no, it's not the same thing. The only thing they fixed was this insecure direct object reference. They didn't fix other things around it. I'm like, oh, okay. So in CVE land, what that means is that it's an independently fixable bug. And so feels like a vulnerability to us. A vulnerability we've been using for 2 years to tell people what their serial numbers are, but fine. You know, the serial number turns out is privileged information, right? It's sensitive information, turns out. So we write to Brother and we're like, hey, guys, I hate to be that guy, but you've missed one.
Hey, brothers.
Hey, brother. You missed that one. And we're working through the disclosure process now. I'll say that. We did end up having to get, feeling like we had to get JP Cert CC involved. You know, I have friends over at JP Cert. We have friends over at JP Cert. And so they're also on the case. Maybe we'll get like a goofball medium severity CVE out of the deal for Rob, you know, so Rob can build his resume. And then maybe one day he too can be a hacker bug bounty hunter like Rishi and Sandeep.
I have like 8 CVEs to my name. And of course HD's like 8. I got 8 this morning. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like it's interesting. Like I'm playing vulnerability disclosure again. I'm playing coordinated vulnerability disclosure with someone else's bug using what didn't seem like a bug at the time, just the spec of the protocol.
Right.
And so it's like one of those weird cases where like brother's not like they're not falling all over themselves to say like, oh yes, sir, here's your CVE, here's your vulnerability, please do the thing. You know, but they're not they don't disagree on the finding, right?
Hmm.
And they reiterate it's like, and by the way, if you have brother printers, do change. Did
Yes.
you ever change your default admin password? Did you know you had a default admin password? um, I know that during testing, Rob definitely derived his default password, which he never changed on at least one of his brother printers.
No, one of them I did, and one of them I didn't. Yeah, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And HD mentioned in the chat, and I definitely want to call this out. There is a Nuclei template that detects
yes.
the initial vulnerability, which is the unprotected direct object reference. And it is super cool in that not only does it do the detection, it actually goes and downloads the sensitive object with the sensitive information. It then, in the template logic, using the embedded JavaScript interpreter, actually does the default password derivation and then uses that derived default password to send another request to see if it actually worked, and then said, oh, by the way, your default password that you've derived is there, which is like
active.
it's just super cool. Like
it's a good onesie twosie, right? Like
it really is. It really is. So
that's my brother's story. It's lame and boring, but it you know, day in the life of vulnerability disclosure. You should come to Vegas, Rob, because
I
you're
should.
speaking.
In fact, I think I'm required to.
HD, you should also go to Vegas because you're speaking kind of a lot.
Yes.
Between all of us here at runZero, we have count 'em six main stage talks. Not all of them main stage, but our recent new hire, Matthew Kenow, is going to be speaking at Black Hat Arsenal along with our friend Daryl Highland. HD is talking at the Diana Initiative. He's going back to DEF CON for year 2 of Shamble. And weird stuff you find in a Shamble. And then also Turbo Tactical Exploitation, 22 tips for tricky targets. If you wanted sibilance on your microphone, you read this thing aloud. It should be really dope. I'm also speaking. I'm talking about CVSS and EPSS and all that jazz. And freshly updated too, fresh data and new stuff in there to talk about, like Lev. What is that? Come to the talk and find out, or just Google it, whatever. But we're all over the place with speaking. We're also all over the place with some social stuff. So go to the link in the chat if you're in the Zoom chat. It's runzero.com/summercamp2025, all hyphenated, and you can sign up for invites to our other cool stuff.
And you absolutely should. And yes, as you can see, it's there's the 6 talks, and fully 50% of them are HD. But
fully 50% of them are not HD.
There you go. That's the way to look at it. Yeah, at game night, our game night host is so good at games that we don't play against each other. We're all just playing against him. He still wins all the time, but you know, at least yeah, exactly. So yeah, that definitely come see us in Las Vegas. It is going to be a pleasant time, is guaranteed for all. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Rishi and Sandeep, thank you. This was super fun, and thank you just in general for all the work that y'all have done. But thank you specifically for showing up today. Everybody, come see us again next month, August 20th, and see us in Las Vegas at various venues. We can sign autographs. We can talk security. It'll be great.
I'm not going to sign autographs.
Yeah, not for free.
No.
So
no. $10.
Yeah. So Rishi, Sandeep, thank y'all so much, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.
Later, all.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.